Dr. Clarence R. Wyatt became Monmouth College's 14th president on July the 1st of 2014. During the first 4 academic years of his presidency, President Wyatt has led Monmouth College's ascent as a national liberal arts college of distinction. Highlights of his administration to date include: in April of 2017, Monmouth received its largest gift in school history, a $20 million commitment to its endowment. The college continues to attract students from both a national and international base, a reflection of the college's outstanding faculty and Monmouth's innovative academic programs. Especially noteworthy is the steady increase in the number of out-of-state students enrolled at Monmouth. When President Wyatt came to the college, more than 92% of the freshman class was from Illinois. For the incoming class of 2022, 1/4 of the freshmen are from out of state. Overall, 15% of Monmouth's total student body is from out of state, up from 9% in 2013. A semester-long program was established in Merida, Mexico, and the college added Mandarin in its modern languages, literatures, and culture programs. Minors have also been added in Asian studies, Latin American studies, and peace, ethics, and social justice. To encourage more students to study abroad, President Wyatt introduced the Monmouth Passport Program. The program provides reimbursement for new students to obtain a U.S. passport if they do not already have one. In addition to covering the cost of application, the college also assists students with completing the application paperwork. The college's James and Sybil Stockdale Fellows Program has taken its place as a marquee scholarship and enrichment program. The Monmouth Triad Program, which brings together 3 disciplines around an issue of broad importance, continues to grow as an embodiment of multidisciplinary engaged teaching and learning. A new triad in global public health joined the first triad, focusing on global food security, and both have been established as minors. About half of Monmouth's professors have been hired in the last 6 years. These new dynamic teacher scholars have joined outstanding veterans to build on the college's legacy of outstanding faculty and academic excellence. Under President Wyatt's leadership, the college's endowment has grown by more than 30%, from $88 million to its present $115 million. By building a stronger and more robust endowment, Monmouth is better equipped to meet the growing needs for additional support for scholarships, student financial aid, and development funds for faculty and staff. Most of Monmouth's low level of long-term debt has been refinanced at low fixed rates, making available additional resources to support student, faculty, and staff needs. The creation of a capital improvements fund, which has allowed the college to better manage maintenance and upkeep of its buildings. The Capital Improvements Fund first project has been a top-to-bottom renovation of Greer Hall so that the 78-year-old 3-story residence hall can continue to meet students' evolving living learning needs. The college also continues to rise in a variety of national rankings. Over the past 2 years, the college has risen 89 places in Washington Monthly's magazine rankings, which focuses on an institution's contribution to social mobility and preparation for work and service. Washington Monthly also ranked Monmouth 19th out of nearly 400 colleges and universities in the Midwest in its best bang for the buck category. The college has jumped 20 places over that same period in the U.S. News and World Report Best Colleges Guide. Less than 5% of all the institutions ranked by U.S. News have made such a dramatic improvement. Dr. Wyatt came to Monmouth from Center College in Danville, Kentucky, where he served as Chief Planning Officer and Special Assistant to the President, and also was the holder of the Pottinger Distinguished Professorship of History. A 1978 graduate of Center, Dr. Wyatt received a master's degree and a doctorate in history from the University of Kentucky in 1984 and 1990, respectively. Dr. Wyatt has received awards from Center for outstanding teaching and for extraordinary leadership in the life of the college. His teaching career and scholarly work distinguished him as a scholar of Americans' involvement in the Vietnam War. As a Fulbright Fellow, Dr. Wyatt taught Vietnamese and U.S. history at Hanoi University in 2012. Dr. Wyatt is married to Lobe Stone, who's with us this morning. Lobe is also an alumna of Center College. Since arriving at Monmouth, she's leveraged her background in the arts, design, and historic preservation to enhance even more the college's already beautiful campus and to preserve and rejuvenate the college's wonderful architectural heritage. Please join me in welcoming Monmouth's 14th president, Dr. Clarence Wyatt.
Thank you, John. All that sounds pretty good. I'll be glad to take your questions. If y'all excuse me, it's once a little warm in here, so I'm going to take this jacket off, and partly outlet makes me feel like I'm back in class, and that's the people that especially the first couple of years that we were here, people would ask Lobe and me, well, what do you miss about being in Kentucky, being at Center and in Danville? And of course, I was there a lot longer. I was there for 40 years before coming here. And of course, there's some people that we would miss, but the thing that I have missed most in this transition is teaching. And I'm hoping that now with the implementation of Scott's term, our 2 short terms, I'm going to get a chance to do that a little bit more. So let me get started. I just want to run through some thoughts that have been guiding what all of us who have the blessing of helping to lead the college think about, and then have some time for questions. The title of this is Monmouth College in the Age of Robots, and I think this is I'll stay with that. That's a general description of the era, but kind of go through some things. And of course, the old saying is that the only constant is change. Such change has always been with us, of course, but it is certain that the speed, the depth, and the breadth of that change is greater than it has ever been. And there are many, many changes that affect the landscape of higher education in America, but let's talk about 4 today. One of them is the Great Recession. Even with the recovery that has taken place, it is a fact that the breadth of that recovery has been uneven. There is, even as wages, as employment has improved, as wages have started to improve, there is still, the Great Recession created an even greater, it accelerated a trend that was already in place, which is skepticism about the value of higher education. And that skepticism about our particular brand of higher education was there, and so that the Great Recession has accelerated that sense of wariness about cost. Is it worth the investment, etc., etc. Public funding. has been under threat for some time. That became even more pronounced following the Great Recession. As, at the federal level, there have constant fights to try to maintain programs such as the Pell Grant program, which serves lower income students. That is particularly important, as for a reason I'll talk about in just a minute. The elimination of the Perkins Loan program. Those federal programs are under threat. Certainly those of you who live in Illinois or keep up with Illinois news know that over the last several years, the state tuition assistance program, the monetary assistance program, has been very dicey as the state struggled to come up with budgets. We only very late in the game did those grants come through to our students. I'm proud to say that Monmouth was one of the few institutions in the state that said if the state ever truly reneged on that commitment, that we would make it good, that we would not hold our students liable. Fortunately, the state in a patchwork fashion came through twice. For the first time, in fact, I sent a message to the Board of Trustees earlier this week that began with, yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus, and also for the first time since 2015, there is a state budget in Illinois that is a full budget and done on time. But counting on public funding, public assistance is a tenuous thing these days. Another powerful change is demographics, changing demographics. The echo of the baby boom peaked in about 2012 or 2013. And since that point, or from that time forward now, the number of traditional college-age students, 18 to 22, is sort of ticking down like this. And when we get to 2025, it's going to be like Wile E. Coyote going off the cliff, for those of you who were fans of Looney Tunes. And that is particularly true in Illinois. Illinois was for a long time the second highest exporter of high school students in America, second only to New Jersey. And with the state budgetary shenanigans, that Illinois became number one in that category. There are 72,000 fewer students attending college and university in the state of Illinois in the fall of 2017 than there were in the fall of 2014. So the growth that is going to take place nationally in the 18 to 22-year-old population is going to be primarily among first-generation college students, lower income, and students from lower income families. And to throw into that, of course, just the growing global integration of the world is another demographic change that is a powerful influencer of what we do. And then the last one that I'll put out for us to talk about today is technological change. And we are, again, that has been a constant throughout human history, but I think it's fair to say that we are at a real transition point with the growing power of artificial intelligence, machine learning. We are at a true watershed moment in terms of that. It's changing how we live, how we travel, how we work, how we relate to other people, how we see ourselves in the world. So at every step in American history, fortunately, higher education has been one of the forces that has helped to advance change, to prepare society to embrace that change, and especially to prepare young people to help lead that change, to thrive in its midst, and to help direct its benefits to the broader society. So while it is under greater scrutiny than ever, higher education is more important than ever. Higher education remains the great determiner in American life. There are a lot of different gates, different switches that can determine the directions of our lives, but higher education in American society remains the great determiner. People who hold a bachelor's degree on average earn more over the course of their lifetimes, are more engaged in their communities over the course of their lifetimes. They have healthier relationships. It is the great change, and I think that we could get testimony from just about everybody in this room in terms of the role that higher education, and especially, of course, a Monmouth education, played in your life. Certainly that is the case in my life. Many of you have heard, of course, that not only am I a first-generation college student, but I'm a first-generation high school student. I know very well the power of higher education to shape an individual's life. And so all of this is especially true at this moment of great change. So if higher education is more important than ever, what are the key issues? What are the big imperatives out there that we need to address? One of them is access. We have to work to be sure that that higher education, whatever the appropriate style, brand, shading of higher education is that is most appropriate for an individual young man or young woman at any moment, make sure that that is available to them if they are willing to work for it, if they're willing to put in the effort, if they're willing to meet the requirements of that. And especially so for this kind of education, because it is, as we'll talk about as we go on, it is the kind of growth that takes place for a young person at Monmouth College in a liberal arts and sciences setting that really prepares them for leadership, really prepares them to thrive in this time of profound change. So access is important. A second factor is, how do we prepare young people to thrive and lead and succeed in this time of change? And it's very easy, of course, to sometimes take that change for granted. But if take a moment and anytime anybody who's looked around while you were dining out at a restaurant or waiting at the gate in an airport or sitting in a park, but you look around and you see the people, the individuals, the couples, the entire families who are looking down at their smartphones. Assuming, of course, that you're not doing the same thing. Automation has already replaced many of the jobs and careers in the post-World War II era that people built solid middle-class lives on. But now, especially that technological change as it advances, is taking over jobs that were once thought to be automation-proof, robot-proof. In the law, computers are now able to do the kind of analysis of huge amounts of material that once paralegals and young associates did. The same for financial analysis. Medical diagnoses. We have a distinguished alum, a member of our board, Kevin Goodwin, who is a leader in this field, who creates technology. He has now been able to put on an iPad ultrasonic diagnostic processes, and that iPad can learn, that process learns, and it does the kind of diagnoses that a radiologist used to have to do. Computers can write credible news stories these days. That's already there. So there are all kinds of fields where you thought it would never be able to replace a human being. That automation is coming in. So we have to provide an experience, as I say, that empowers young people to anticipate this kind of change, to respond to it, and to lead it. Now that kind of experience is going to continue to emphasize certain kinds of particular skills. Clear and graceful communication, of course, quantitative literacy, and an ability, a comfort with looking at and drawing conclusions from mass amounts of data. The ability to gather and analyze disparate and sometimes conflicting pieces of information. But more, I think, just as, and I think perhaps even more important, are the kind of mindsets, ways of thinking. For example, boundless intellectual curiosity, the desire and the ability to be a lifelong learner, the ability and indeed the eagerness to adapt to new situations and new circumstances, the ability to think creatively, to work as a member of the team. These are already the characteristics that employers are looking for, and especially employers in fields of endeavor where this technological change is most advanced. These are the things they're looking for. We still need human beings, in fact, even more important, human beings with these skill sets and these mindsets to be able to guide that kind of change. And a third imperative that I want to mention is one that doesn't get talked about quite as often as some of these others, and that's a shame. But it is, for me, it is character, both personal and civic character. Higher education should also help young people to develop the ethical, moral, grounding, and context to be able to direct change in ways that create healthier communities, both at the local, national, and global levels. Some elements of this ethical context are a sense of responsibility for oneself, and along with that, a sense of responsibility for others. Seeing and embracing opportunities for oneself, but also creating opportunities for others. Treating other people with the same kindness and respect that we want for ourselves. This idea of character, both personal and civic, is the fabric that secures us as individuals in this time of rapid change, but it also secures us as members of communities and as communities at large in this time when it would be very easy for us to all spin out into separate orbits. So how is the college, how is Monmouth College, how is our college responding to these imperatives? Take access first. Monmouth always has been, and at least as long as I have any responsibility for it, will remain a place both of high opportunity and high achievement. 40% of our students receive Pell Grants. As I said, those are grants that are offered to young people of lower income. A similar number of our students are first-generation college students. 100% of our students receive some form of financial assistance. About a third of our students are domestic students of color. We work hard to keep our average student debt below the national average. And at Monmouth, high opportunity means more than just paying the bill. It means more than just getting past Richard Marshall's office. No easy task. It's more than just getting past the cashier's window. As Trent Gilbert, our VP for Enrollment Management, likes to say, we don't look to recruit students. We seek to recruit graduates and engaged and successful alumni. Student success is central to all that we do. And we'll talk about this a little bit more as we go along, but that's exemplified by the student success or retention moonshot that you've heard some mention of, an effort that we began about a year and a half ago to really kind of bring all of the things that we were doing to work on student success, retention, and graduation rates, bring them together in a coherent and focused effort. And some of the folks who have led that effort, everybody on campus is participating in this. Chris Johnston has been a key part of that. Laura Hutchinson, our still relatively new VP for Student Life, has been a big part of that. David Timmerman, our Dean of the Faculty, has been a real leader in that as well. So access writ large is a very important imperative. Innovation of the experience is the second imperative. At Monmouth, we speak about the liberating arts and sciences, because that is what this experience really means. It liberates us from whatever confines that circumstances of life might have created for us. It frees young people from those limits. It empowers them to see and seize opportunities as yet unimagined. We do this through a teaching and learning experience that our faculty continually examines and refreshes. Some examples of that John mentioned in his opening remarks, we'll call them that, the Triad program, which he mentioned. The first two triads are off to a great start. We're always going to be looking at opportunities to create others. That brings a flexibility to our curriculum. It energizes our faculty as they can rethink how they approach their disciplines and make their disciplines and talk about their disciplines in a way that is relevant and powerful and impactful for today. We've got a great array of collaborative research experiences on our campus. The Kieft Summer Research Program that was established through a bequest from Doc Kieft, who many of you all had in class and no, was a beloved faculty member. The Sophia program, summer opportunities for intellectual activities, where young people come in, many of them incoming freshmen come in and are working on sophisticated research programs in conjunction with faculty members. I'll cite one from our first summer here. There's a young woman who was an incoming freshman. She has scoliosis. Both she and her sister had scoliosis. This young woman, our student, had a titanium rod inserted in her spine, and she was doing great. Her older sister had a stainless steel rod. She wasn't doing as well with this. And so this young woman is doing research on how organic materials adhere to these, James, whatever the proper term, these inserts, these prosthetics, whatever the proper term would be. She's 18 years old, and she's doing this kind of research, and she's doing it here. Self-designed majors are a growing aspect of our experience as well. So, back at the beginning of the just concluded school year, encouraged by the board, I put out a challenge to our faculty to think about new programs, new academic programs that can energize our academic experience, both for our students and for our faculty, and yes, that can make us more attractive to prospective students as well. And we got a great response from the faculty with that. And in fact, there are a series of these that we have just concluded the process of doing some market testing on in terms of their attractiveness both to employers and to prospective students. The three that have kind of risen to the top at this moment are data science / informatics. As we've come to look into this, I've learned that the term informatics is really one that works best for us because it is data science that is put in service to different kinds of fields. And so that is exactly the experience we would have. It's not just manipulating the numbers. It's what do the numbers mean? What can the numbers help us do? How can they help us change this aspect of our society or whatever enterprise particular enterprise we're involved in? Neuroscience is another of those fields. It's a growing field, bringing together different aspects of the sciences: psychology, biology, chemistry, an emerging and important field. And then, as the faculty member who led this effort describes this, Renaissance engineering. Engineering in the liberal arts context. Much like informatics, it's not just engineering for engineering's sake. It's being able to teach engineering within an understanding that you're not just building a building. You're not just building a bridge. What are the political, social, economic, cultural factors that go into whatever project is that you're working on as an engineer? And in terms of character, alumni of this college know through your personal experience the opportunities that you had to grow as leaders, the opportunities that you had to come to know people who on a surface level were different from you, and how you were able to grow through your interactions with those folks. The opportunities for leadership, for the development of those kinds of senses of responsibility and opportunity are profound at the college. And one of the challenges in American higher education today, it is no secret, is the potential for conflict on campuses. Whether it's along ideological lines, whether it's along ethnic lines, whatever the divide might be, no campus is immune to those, but I'm proud to say that this campus has approached those issues from a context that we are all here together. We like to talk about the fact that we are all, in addition to being fighting Scots, that we are all noble Monmouth College Scots, and that is an identity that brings us all together. But we have done this through some very active and some intentional ways. About 2 years ago, I guess now, we created, or the faculty and staff led the creation of a group called All of Us Together. Where some campuses had gotten into difficulty previously was that there was no place for people to come together and talk about concerns. People would just, those whatever the irritant, the concern, whatever it was, would fester and then could manifest itself in ways that weren't constructive or productive. The All of Us Together group is a place for people to come to say, I'm concerned about this. I want us to talk about that. And that has been a very healthy and a very constructive process for us at the college. So we approach dealing with all of these things from a real position of strength. I'll talk about, there are only about 20 or so, I would say, Richard, Trent, probably about only 20 or so national liberal arts colleges that, well, put it this way, every national liberal arts college is worried about finance, worried about student recruitment, worried about innovation. They're all thinking about all these issues that we have just talked about now. Now, there are some who have bigger endowments and longer lines at the door that have a little more cushion. But every, a little bit, Trina says a little bit. I used to, in my previous life, I used to say that one of our goals would be to have a 3-year margin of error as opposed to a 2-year margin of error. And that is the reality for almost every institution in this country. Every college in the country is dealing with these demographic changes and the challenges of the Great Recession that we talked about. We are included. And I'll be very direct to say that the Great Recession really couldn't have been anticipated. I guess unless you watched the movie The Big Short and people who got rich off of anticipating that. Yeah, they did. The one that should have been, and frankly at the college we were behind in responding to this, was the changing demographics. There had been an emphasis on trying to build the size of the student body as the primary goal, with less regard to building net student revenue that can create greater quality at the college. And also, there was a doubling down on Illinois as a source of students. Now, Illinois is our home. We are always going to serve Illinois. And in fact, many of the things that we're doing, that Trent is leading, is to have us be more effective in recruiting students from Illinois, including the Chicagoland area. But the old bank robber Willie Sutton said, somebody asked him once, "Why did you rob banks?" And his response was, "That's where the money is." We are going to go out of state, we're going out of state and targeting areas because that's where there are pockets where the traditional college-age population is growing. Colorado is one of our first efforts, and we are seeing real success out of Colorado. These all take time to build. Any of you all who have been involved in business, you know it takes time to build new markets. But we're seeing success in Colorado. We are also starting to have some success in Texas. We've just identified the northern suburbs of Atlanta as another target of opportunity for us, pockets within Florida, some additional places within Texas. So we're going to continue to work those. And so so we have increased our per student net revenue over the last, and increased it and sustained that increase over the last several years. But we simply could not, primarily because the students weren't there, the bodies simply weren't there anymore. We could not continue to pursue that headcount at all cost approach. And again, just to speak very frankly, that approach caused the reputation of the college to slip in some areas. And that's a challenge that we have worked effectively to begin to change. Another strength of the college is the fundamental, so again, so let me conclude the thing about enrollment. We are smaller. We are smaller now than we were. We are establishing a solid base. We're establishing a solid platform from which to then grow our student body in a measured and strategic way, one that will sustain the college for the long run. Another position of strength that we have, again, John referred to some of this in his opening remarks, is the fundamental financial strength of the college. I would encourage everybody to come to the Q&A this afternoon, because then you get to hear Richard talk a little bit more about this, but I'll talk about some aspects of this. Really, John referred to some of them. We are now nearly a $200 million enterprise in terms of our net assets. Our net assets have grown significantly over the last several years. As John mentioned, the endowment has grown from about $90 million to $115 million over the last several years. We've created the Capital Improvements Fund, which provides a vehicle by which we can address facilities needs on a more strategic basis. I'll briefly explain the CIF. It's, let's say you want to build a, let's take Greer for example, a $6.5 million project. We could have gone out and raised $6.5 million to renovate Greer. That'd have been great, and then it's done and the $6.5 million is gone. But let's instead raise $6.5 million, have it in quasi-endowment in this Capital Improvements Fund. That then allows us to go out and borrow $6.5 million that we can then use to address this. And especially in this interest rate environment, even at a conservative estimate, we're going to earn more on that $6.5 million of quasi-endowment that we're going to pay in debt service. Use somebody else's money cheaper, keep ours. It's pretty common sense. Even I can figure out that that's a pretty good thing. That innovation, this is our first effort with that. It really exists it allows us now to be able to anticipate things that we want to do on the campus. Continued renovation of the Ninth Street Residence Halls is an important. A new campus center is probably once that renovation is complete, a new campus center is the one big remaining facilities need that we have on campus. But the creation of that CIF is an important thing. Again, as John made reference to, we have very low debt. It's about $20 million right now, Richard, against $200 million net asset. Through Richard's leadership and many members of the Board of Trustees, we were able to refinance that on some very, very attractive terms. So we've got a great platform from which to make good strategic use of long-term debt to advance the college. Another factor that's going into that gives us great confidence about the fundamental financial strength of the college going forward is the campaign, the endowment building campaign that we are planning. And we are have just completed or just completing the feasibility study for that campaign. The feasibility study is where you go out and interview a select number of individuals who will to kind of gauge their sense of the readiness of the college for this effort, gauge their sense of their participation in that effort. We're just completing that. It's been very, very encouraging. Of course, the commitment of $20 million lead gift gave us great confidence going into that feasibility study and that campaign planning. We're just completing that, beginning to shift into what's known as the silent but not secret phase of the campaign. And the campaign is going to be known as the Light This Candle campaign. It plays off, of course, of our beautiful motto, "Sit Lux, Let There Be Light," and also it's an indulgence of my specialty in 20th century U.S. history, and especially being a space flight nerd. When Alan Shepard sat atop the rocket, waiting to go, he finally said, "Light this candle. Let's get going." And so I think that captures this moment in the life of the college. So you're going to be hearing more. Oh, believe me, you're going to be hearing more about the Light This Candle campaign as we go forward over the next several months. Another great asset that we've got, of course, is a great faculty and staff. We have a wonderful mix As John said, about half of the faculty has been hired over the last few years. We've got a great mix of veteran faculty members and new faculty members, and the same is true on the staff side. Our growing national reputation, again, John mentioned those things, the spirit of innovation, a beautiful campus. Through the wisdom of all and the generosity of all of you and the leadership of the board, we have created a gem of a campus here. And of course, one of the great strengths is you all. Dedicated alumni and friends, led by an exceptional board of trustees. It's your all's support that makes all of this possible. So, ambition is a powerful idea, I think, for us. First and foremost, we're ambitious for our students. We want them to help them grow and to succeed and to lead in the ways that I've described. To do that, we've got to be ambitious for the college. We need to speak about these imperatives that I've talked about, these opportunities, these strengths, in a stronger voice, and to act on them with greater purpose and effectiveness. To make this experience stronger, to make it more widely known, and to make it more widely available. I'm pleased and proud to say that this ambition is embraced by our students, by our faculty and staff, and by our alumni and our trustees. There is, in American higher education, a phenomenon known as flight to quality. And again, each of you probably knows that phenomenon, even if not by that name, in your personal experience, in your own business endeavors. People gravitate toward institutions, organizations that do things well. You've got a choice between this coffee shop and this coffee shop. This coffee shop does it well every day. You're going to go back to that coffee shop and you're not going to go to this one. So that phenomenon of a flight to quality is powerful in American higher education. No college or university is going to be able to stand still. You're either going to get stronger or you're going to get weaker. We are one of the institutions that's going to be stronger. So what we do, the senior colleagues that I get to work with every day, and really all of us on campus, is kind of a mantra of mine, is the long run every day. What do we do every day to build Monmouth College for the long run? I just finished reading John Meacham's book, The Soul of America, and in his section about Franklin Roosevelt, I think I'll get this exactly right, FDR was supposed to give a speech commemorating Thomas Jefferson's birthday on April 13th, 1945. Of course, FDR died of a brain hemorrhage on April 12th, 1945, but a part of that speech was, let me get it just right. The only limit on tomorrow is our doubts of today. Let us move forward with strong and active faith. And that's not to try to wax too eloquent. That is this special moment in the life of Monmouth College. It's a special place at a special time, responding to this special moment in our history. And Loby and I are pleased to be a part of this adventure and pleased to be a part of it with all of you. So I will stop there and see what questions you might have. Or I'll have rebuttal from our colleagues in the room. So, Juan, I think you had your hand up, yeah.
I was just wondering, I mean, it's good that we're reflecting demographics and diversifying the student body, but I was wondering, why did 72,000 students not want to go to college in Illinois? What was the reason behind it? Can we somehow get some of them back? I didn't know what is it all economic reasons?
Some of it's economics. Trent, you want to?
A big part of it's economics. A big part of it's economic reasons, and then the demographic shift that's happening as well. And just in terms of less students in Illinois. The budget crisis in Illinois created a ton of uncertainty. It created an opportunity for my colleagues in border states to come in and, for lack of a better word, poach students from Illinois. And so the state lost a lot of students to Iowa, to Wisconsin, to Missouri, to Indiana, that were really just coming across the border and saying, listen, you don't want to go to school in Illinois because you don't know if you're ever going to get this funding, but we're going to promise you're going to be able to have these kind of scholarship opportunities here. There was a recent article in one of the Chicago newspapers about the University of Alabama coming in, and a big portion of University of Alabama's class is from Chicago, because they're coming in. In our Chicagoland market, when we started recruiting in Chicago and we first staffed a regional recruiter in Chicago, there was 4 institutions represented by 4 people living in Chicago, and those were all Illinois institutions. Right now, there are 130 representatives representing 110 different institutions from all over the country, with a staff presence in Chicago recruiting students in Illinois.
Yeah,
Comment and a question. Comment is about, I was amazed this past year of how many students, when I learned the number of how many students that are also involved in athletic support, sports and everything. And I think we had 5 championships this year.
5 conference champions this year, and then baseball, men's basketball, men's indoor and outdoor track. Football, of course. Yeah. Oh, that was so long ago. Football. Yeah, football. And many other teams that did very well. Our water polo team went to nationals. Softball missed conference by just a hair. Men's and women's lacrosse both taken off. This was a turnaround season for women's basketball. The women's basketball, it's fair to say, women's basketball team struggled in the last few years. But even over the course of this season, you could see that team change. And so, yeah, it's about half, Laura, about half of our students at some point in their 4 years at Monmouth, about half of our students participate. Doesn't mean that everybody who does it participates all 4 years, but about half of our students participate in intercollegiate athletics at some point in their time at the college. So it's a great strength for us.
And the question to that is building on the character of the students between academic, sports, and of course, many of us in here remember our religious background as mandatory chapel, and unfortunately I was at the end of that. But the question is I've heard is, where is Monmouth College in relation to its religious, moving forward character, knowing there's diversification as a Presbyterian college? I've heard concerns that we moved away from that.
We have a very strong relationship with Presbyterian Church USA. We are fortunate to have Terry Ott as our chaplain. She is an ordained Presbyterian minister. We have chapel is no longer mandatory, but we have chapel offered every week. And it is conducted as a Presbyterian service. One of the wonderful things about Terry is that she is able to do that. And of course, this is the spirit of the Presbyterian Church, is to be inclusive and to be embracing, as to have those services be such that anyone can become, anyone who is on a spiritual path can be comfortable and affirmed within that. So I think we do it very well. Again, in fact, in terms of our participation with the Association of Presbyterian Colleges and Universities, we've enhanced that over the last few years, have begun to be a more active part of that organization. I don't dispute the question at all, but no, the college's heritage as a Presbyterian institution is still strong. Laura, you want to
If I
add anything
could
to that?
add just to that, Terry also developed with Trent and
Yes.
Admissions a Presbyterian scholarship program with a very robust experience for students who are participating, so they get a scholarship. They help host chapel. They do some interfaith work. They program every Sunday night. They have dinner and devotion in Presbyterian House, which is well attended by very diverse students, not just other Presbyterian students, but students of color. They lead some wonderful theological sort of exploration discussions. They participate in service as a cohort. In addition, I think Dr. Wyatt actually attended the conference for Presbyterian chaplaincy and Presbyterian schools. I can't remember the name of it, but
The APCU, Associated Presbyterian
and
Colleges and
so
Universities.
there's some leadership from Dr. Wyatt, as well as a great deal of support for Reverend Ott's work. And she has very close ties to our local presbytery as well as national. And she and her spouse, Dr. Dan Ott, and some other faculty got together and developed with Lilly funding an immersion experience for students, the Lux Summer Theological Institute, for high school students to come for 2 weeks, not just 1 week, and do very robust. They actually are taught by PhD students in Bible, in theology, and another Bible theology, and
Ethics.
ethics. That's not good.
You forget that every time.
Religion and theology is actually my academic discipline, and ethics was required, so I had just a moment here. And that has been really robust, and those students they make a connection with Monmouth as a Presbyterian place and see themselves here as well as a connection with one another. And so they're doing another 2 weeks of that this summer, and I think it's for me, as a Chief Student Affairs Officer, it's very much a part of how I see our students. They are not all Presbyterian. Some of them are unaffiliated, but they recognize that that's part of the tradition of proud, noble, fighting Scots.
I've heard, I've been interested lately in a lot about artificial intelligence and what effect that will have on our society. And I would think that would, a college such as Monmouth College would definitely affect what they do, such as leisure activities, service activities that may have a bigger role in the lives of students if the artificial intelligence does a lot of the things that we're training to do.
Well, and it's, again, as I was talking about, there, in some ways, you can, I guess, suppose describe it as cutting two ways. One, our students, no matter what their particular major be, and is within those majors need to develop an affinity with with data, with the sort of the processes behind this technological change. You've got to have, even if you're, in fact, even if you're not a software engineer, you need to have, it doesn't mean you have to, it doesn't mean you have to be a software engineer, but you need to have some fluency and some comfort with those concepts, because you're going to encounter those no matter what you go into. But by the same token, no matter what your major is, you need to develop those fundamental skill sets and mindsets that are going to be timeless, that are going to inform how we use, how we develop, how we guide artificial intelligence. And again, just give you an example. What was it? It was several months ago. There was the first, it was in Arizona, there was the first fatality involving an autonomous vehicle. Okay, that's not just, certainly there was a technological, there was issue there, but there's a legal issue. Who's responsible? Who gets sued? There's a moral and ethical issue. Is it? Do we really want to turn these things loose on the streets? Yeah. There's a political consideration. Are they going to get licensed? Are they going to get not? Obviously, there are economic ramifications from all that. And so it is the people with the development of the skill sets and mindsets that you get at Monmouth College are the people who are going to lead us in answering those questions. Yeah. Well,
Could you describe your academic distribution of students and what particular departments are strong or attract a lot of students, what ones are maybe weak or struggle for students? I think one of the mistakes you made on this program, you have fabulous labs here, and you don't have a tour schedule to show them off. I mean, it blows me away, the labs and the instruments you have now compared to our instrument lab that was, what, 12 feet wide and 20 feet long. You got rooms of it now.
but we'll certainly add that.
Well, at homecoming, we had an opportunity to do one, and
Yeah.
it was well done.
I think we could probably create that opportunity even while you're here this weekend for people who are interested. So, yeah. I don't like to use the term weak disciplines.
Well, but they exist.
Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by weak. I don't want to get into
Well,
that.
few students,
Sure,
yes, exactly.
Yeah, there are going to be programs that always have fewer students, but we are not going to be Wisconsin-Stevens Point, which went in and axed most of its humanities curriculum. Now, this is like Wobegon, all all the children aren't above average either. And in fact, this is the idea of we have held back on filling faculty positions in disciplines where the enrollment doesn't justify filling that position. We make those strategic decisions. But and certainly we're going to construct a curriculum that is attractive to prospective students and attractive to prospective employers. But to be the kind of person that we've described, we have to have our students have the opportunity. Development of modern language, a facility in a foreign language, that is increasingly important to your ability to succeed in the world.
Well, my question sort of is these ebb and flow over time.
They do,
We were
exactly
particularly
right.
strong in the sciences
Exactly
when we were here. I don't know, are you still or not? This is a business and technology. Those major gifts are usually coming from business majors, not retired chemists.
Except with a retired chemist that develops a really great patent and makes a lot of money off it. Yeah. Wendell, I see your point, and I don't disagree with your point at all. At all. You need to invest. You want to invest resources in disciplines, as I've said, that are both attractive at this moment to prospective employers and that are attractive to prospective students. But that doesn't mean that we're going to, but if we gave up on the other disciplines that one might describe as weak, that have few students, we are no longer the kind of place that is creating young people who are really going to lead in this future.
I wasn't really challenging you to do it, but I just wondered how the student populations have, you've got a lot of people involved in physical or sports, so do you have a lot of PE majors now? And we
Or
only have
exercise science.
kinesiology.
Kinesiology, yeah, which is a very, and it's like because kinesiology was, as an academic program, was kind of new to me when Logan and I got here. This is sophisticated science. Kinesiology is very sophisticated science. But business and economics continues to be a big and strong program for us. Kinesiology, exercise science is a big one for us. Psychology is a very strong program for us. And so we've got biology and biochemistry are one of our bigger programs. And so you're right, these kind of ebb and flow over time. And part of it, that's the thing. How do we stay current and relevant within and while advancing this particular kind of preparation that I believe even more is the kind of preparation that young people need in this world where everything's changing by the second.
Your classics program was great. Well, I don't know if it is now or not.
It is still very strong. And you have, and a lot of times when you, and James knows this well, that when sometimes you can look at a program and if it may have relatively few majors, but it serves a lot of students. A lot of students will take courses within that program to help fulfill general education requirements, just because it's a strong and attractive program. Classics is a good example. Classics teaches a lot of kids. There's not a lot of classics majors, but it teaches a lot of kids. Yeah.
One of the things I heard you speak about, which sort of goes into your question, is that we are preparing students to succeed in industries and jobs, something like 65% of which do not yet
Do not yet
exist.
exist, yeah.
I think that's a really powerful
Yeah.
statement of, the insistence and the belief in preparing our students for a broad array of individual interests.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of as a college president, you want to kind of come up with little phrases that try to capture what you're trying to talk about, and Logan, things just remind me of one, is that really what, certainly preparing young people for their first job is important. I mean, that is absolutely important, having them prepared to be able to enter into the workforce, and even if it's, and in fact, even more, I mean, study after study of employers and of career service enterprises say that don't get hung up on the particular major. Don't approach your major choice thinking that major is going to take you into a particular job. Really think about it, again, more in just what are the skill sets, what are the mindsets that you need to develop to pursue what you're interested in. Find craft an academic program that helps you do that. Because it's the term, I just read this term the other day, it's called the leveling of role. And so an English major could be an essential part of a high-tech enterprise. So you don't have to be a software engineer for that. So, but that's, so again, getting back to my, the presidential catchphrase is that, we're seeking to prepare young people not for the jobs that are going to soon cease to exist, but to be able to thrive in and indeed create the jobs that do not yet exist. We obviously want to be able to do both. Yeah.
I want to turn it the other direction, which is, you hired a lot of faculty recently, but what are you doing to retain the faculty, keep the quality so that they're not recruited away as their excellence gets known? I know you've lost a couple faculty to State University.
Yeah, and that's always going to happen. That's always going to happen, especially, one of the big challenges is dual career. We're not big enough, and unless the Rubik's Cube clicks just right to be able to offer that. Fortunately, we've got two young couples on campus for whom that's worked, Bob and Michelle Simmons, and the Hawthorns. They are just great young faculty members already emerging as leaders. Part of it is to be able to certainly compensation is a part of it. Now we are below our faculty salaries are competitive, but within the Associated Colleges of the Midwest, and then also within peer and aspirant group that Chris Johnson, as our Director of Analytics, helps us to manage. We are making progress in that. At the assistant professor, at the beginning assistant professor level, we're quite competitive there. There's the phenomenon of the flattening of salaries as one went through one's career. But the compensation part of it, again, that's one of the objectives. The four objectives of the Like This Candle campaign are endowment for student financial aid and scholarships, endowment for faculty and academic support, and endowment for facilities, and then building a stronger culture of philanthropy through building a stronger annual fund and a stronger deferred gift register. But increasing endowment for faculty compensation, increasing endowment to allow faculty to engage in professional and scholarly activity. One of the ways that we want to do this is through the creation of as many endowed professorships as we can create. John mentioned that one of my titles back in my previous life was Pottinger Professor of History. What that meant was that I had there was an endowment in place that provided me some additional salary and also provided me what we refer to there as an enabling fund that I could use for professional activity in any given year. So and I will be straight up about it that someone really wants to live in a small town, in a rural area, and that's helping people see the attractiveness of that, or helping to overcome the limitations of that. If they see that in their minds, that's a part of it. That's a part of it as well. Yeah, Mark?
Yes, I thought she was going to ask something. What I want to know is that, okay, you have all these different majors and minors. So here's the thing. You're specializing so much that if there isn't a market there, or a lot of people, if they don't have a job offer from that little specialized field, then they can't go to anywhere else. Since as a math major, I could go to Federal Reserve, I could go to warfare, I could go to space. So we need the the broad, the classical majors, math, physics, and things like that. But if you have all these, and the other thing is that if you have the specialized majors and minors, then I thought that this was going to be a question. You need professors who can teach those. So then you're paying more people
Well-
to teach all these other subjects, and that's more expense for the college.
That might be the way that it appears on the surface one, but that's not exactly the way it is. But being, the program, many of the programs that John described are minors that are developed by
So that
faculty members.
existing faculties can teach this
Exactly.
rather than creating
Exactly.
65
Yeah,
majors.
we did not decide to create a minor in Asian studies and grow out and recruit somebody to come in and serve a minor of Asian studies. We had we have a new, she's now in Michelle's in her second year, or just finished her second year, Michelle Damien, who has her primary, she's a historian, her primary field is British colonial history, but she has, sort of attendant to that, she has strong interest in East Asia. And so and it was a hole in our, having the ability to offer more courses in Asian history was a hole in our teaching and learning experience. And so she and a couple of other faculty members, I just kind of helped with it because of my interest in Asian history, created that program. We didn't add any faculty to serve that. It was, we had resources and interest available to be able to do that.
Join me again in thanking Dr. Wyatt.